We are counting down the 10 legendary movie cars that have disappeared without a trace. From prototypes that vanished miles below the ocean to iconic film vehicles lost in gaps in paperwork, destroyed in stunts, or erased by studios, every entry on this list is grounded in fact and wrapped in unresolved mystery. Some well-known heroes are gone forever, while others hide in decades-old records and in collector debates. Which missing machine ranks as the most irreversibly lost? Let us begin with number 10. In July 1956, a single crate was loaded deep into cargo hold number 2 of the ocean liner Andrea Doria as it prepared to cross the Atlantic. Inside was the Norseman, a one-of-a-kind, 4-seat fastback prototype built by the Italian coach builder Ghia for Chrysler. The Norseman's design was decades ahead of its time, with a cantilevered roof that required no center pillars, and a windshield that carried some of the car's structural load. Chrysler spent $200,000 developing this car, an extraordinary sum in the 1950s, and intended it to be the centerpiece of their upcoming American Auto Show tour. The Andrea Doria never reached New York. On July 25th, the ship collided with the Stockholm in thick fog off Nantucket and sank to the bottom, taking the Norseman with it. The wreck now lies on its starboard side, more than 240 feet below the surface. Technical divers began exploring the site decades later, drawn by the challenge and the legend. Among them, David Bright reported reaching the crumbling remains of cargo hold number 2 in the 1990s. According to his accounts, the Norseman had long since disintegrated, and only the wheels could still be identified among the debris. The hull's collapse, swirling silt, and tangled steel make any recovery attempt nearly impossible. The Andrea Doria is known among divers as the Mount Everest of wrecks for its danger, and the number of lives lost attempting to explore it. No salvage team has ever mounted a focused effort to recover the Norseman. And with the car reduced to fragments, the prospect is now only theoretical. The loss transformed the Norseman from a showpiece into a legend, its fate sealed by the ocean. Its story survives only in photographs, press clippings, and the haunting testimony of those who have dared to visit the wreck. Turin's rooftops and arcades became a playground for a fleet of Mini Coopers in 1969. Each car pushed to its limits for the Italian job's legendary heist scenes. Production sources and crew interviews suggest somewhere between 16 and 32 minis were used, but no official list survives. Each car was tailored for its moment, undercarriages reinforced for stair jumps, suspensions beefed up for rooftop landings, and some bodies lightened for the tight squeeze through Turin's sewer tunnels. Stunt drivers recall swapping out battered shells on location, with several cars scrapped right after filming wrapped. The chaos of production left paperwork in disarray. No master roster of chassis numbers was kept, and many cars disappeared into local scrapyards or were broken up for parts. Museums and private collectors now claim a handful of surviving minis, but most lack continuous documentation tracing them back to the set. The absence of call sheets and disposal invoices has fueled decades of debate. Was that red Mini in the museum really part of the rooftop chase, or just a look-alike? The result is a vanished fleet, with only fragments and memories left to piece together what became of cinema's most famous getaway cars. In 1973, American Graffiti introduced audiences to the yellow 1932 Ford Deuce Coupe, a hot rod that soon became a symbol of small-town cruising and American car culture. The image of the car entered the public imagination and grew into a legend. The reality behind that legend is far messier. Universal did not own a fleet of movie props. Instead, the studio leased several 1932 Fords from local California hot rodders. After filming wrapped, the cars went back to their owners, carrying the marks of a brief Hollywood stint. Over the years, these coupes were anything but museum pieces. Owners repainted them, swapped engines, chopped roofs, and rebuilt bodies, sometimes more than once. Each modification erased a little more of a car's film identity. No studio master list was kept, and no single coupe left the set with a permanent label tying it to John Milner's on-screen ride. Some surviving cars have old photos or letters from crew, but gaps in their histories remain. Others rely on oral tradition and faded memories. The story is one of constant change and of modifications that gradually obscure origin. Today, dozens of Deuce coupes are celebrated as possible survivors, but none can prove an unbroken chain from the set to the present. The hero car's identity has dissolved into the culture it helped define. Its legacy now scattered among countless rebuilt hot rods and the enthusiasts who keep chasing its story. The loss is not only physical, it is cultural, and for now, the true Deuce coupe of American graffiti remains a mystery. In 1983, Christine rolled onto movie screens as a 1958 Plymouth Fury with a taste for revenge. The production secret was a fleet of late 1950s Plymouth B bodies, at least 23, possibly as many as 27, recruited to play the killer car. Not all of them were true Furies. Belvederes in Savoy were disguised with trim and paint, their identities swapped to keep up with the relentless cycle of stunts and destruction. Crash scenes, fire gags, and junkyard sequences consumed most of the fleet. Scrap receipts and insurance paperwork account for many, but the numbers never quite add up. Studio inventory sheets hint at more cars than have been traced, and auction catalogs list only a handful of confirmed survivors. One car in particular stands out, a Plymouth with no documented fate. Its VIN does not appear in any known sale, gift, or crusher log. It may have been quietly parted out, sold off, or simply lost in the chaos of a low-budget horror shoot. The missing Christine occupies a space between legend and ledger, fueling rumors and fan hunts for decades. Its absence is a reminder that even in the era of mass production, a single car can slip through the cracks, leaving behind only fragments of paperwork and the lingering shadow of a story unfinished. On the back roads of the Appalachian foothills, Thunder Road's moonshine car was more than just a movie prop. It was a living piece of outlaw history. The Ford Coupe, seen in the 1958 film, visually a 1951 model, but called a 1950 in dialogue, carried the marks of real-world use. Production accounts say the car was bought straight from North Carolina bootleggers, complete with hidden tanks for running illicit liquor. Unlike studio-built replicas, this car arrived on set, already modified for speed and secrecy, and it felt real. No bill of sale, registration slip, or studio logbook has ever surfaced to confirm its origins. Local Department of Motor Vehicles searches and prop house records turn up nothing. The car's fate, after filming, is a blank page. Some say it was sold back into the underground economy. Others believe it was stripped for parts or quietly scrapped. Oral histories from the region keep the legend alive, passing down tales of a Ford that outran the law both on and off the screen. What remains is a cultural ghost. The Thunder Road. Ford stands as a symbol of working-class ingenuity and Southern folklore, a car that disappeared not through destruction or accident, but by slipping back into the shadows where it came from, leaving no official trace behind. In 1968, Disney assembled a fleet of Volkswagen Beetles to bring Herbie to life in Lovebug. Production records and crew interviews suggest around 26 cars were pressed into service, each assigned a specific task. Some Beetles starred in close-up shots, others tackled racing scenes, and a few were modified for stunts or comic gags like self-opening doors and remote-controlled steering. Sequels and television spin-offs added even more cars to the Herbie roster, sometimes reusing or repainting earlier vehicles. The challenge of identifying the original Herbie begins with Disney's own paperwork. Studio work orders, mechanic logs, and chassis lists remain sealed or incomplete. Auction houses and collectors have tried to match paint layers and body details to on-screen moments, but gaps in registration and studio documentation leave every claim open to question. Some surviving Beetles carry partial provenance, a period photo, a faded sticker, a mechanic's recollection, but none can produce an unbroken chain from the first day of filming to the present. The absence of a definitive first Herbie has fueled competing claims, with multiple cars now celebrated as originals despite conflicting evidence. This uncertainty has only added to Herbie's charm. The mystery invites fans and restorers to keep searching, turning the hunt itself into a tradition. While dozens of Beetles survive with stories to tell, the true inaugural Herbie remains lost in the shuffle, a legend built as much on imagination as on metal. 2 Highland Green, 1968 Ford Mustang GT Fastbacks powered the chase through San Francisco and Bullitt, one for close-up shots and driving, the other for the brutal stunts. The hero car, long thought lost, resurfaced in 2018 after decades in private hands. Its identity was confirmed through a forensic process that left little doubt. The vehicle identification number 5F09G187119 matched Ford's original build records, and a Marty report traced its journey from factory to film set. Layered paint analysis and period photos revealed telltale scars, camera mount marks, unique welds, and dents seen in the movie, sealing its place as the authenticated Bullitt Mustang. The fate of its twin tells a different story. The stunt car absorbed the worst of the action: high-speed jumps, hard landings, and the final crash. Warner Brothers maintains it was scrapped after filming, following the standard practice of disposing of damaged, liability-prone stunt vehicles. Yet no crusher certificate, junkyard ledger, or Department of Motor Vehicles salvage record has surfaced. Mustang historians and collectors have scoured archives and tracked rumors, but the stunt car's vehicle identification number is missing from every registry. Occasional claims of a battered shell found in a barn or junkyard have failed to withstand scrutiny. None match the welds, panel scars, or paperwork required for proof. The contrast is stark. One Mustang authenticated down to the last rivet, the other erased by incomplete records and the passage of time. The Bullitt chase remains a benchmark of film history, but the missing stunt car endures as a symbol of how even icons can slip through the cracks. Lost somewhere between the studio lot and the scrapyard, with only legend left behind. In 1979, a black Ford Falcon XB GT Coupe thundered across Australian screens as the pursuit special, the Interceptor, that would become the signature of the Mad Max universe. Its transformation was radical, with a fiberglass nose, flared fenders, side pipes, and a towering non-functional supercharger grafted onto a former highway patrol vehicle. The original build, overseen by George Miller's crew and customizer Ray Beckerly, set a new standard for post-apocalyptic style. After filming, the Interceptor narrowly escaped the scrapyard. It was rebuilt for Mad Max 2, traded some of its original panels and structure for new parts, and was sold and repurchased as the production demanded. Today, a Falcon XB GT displayed in museums claims to be the very first Interceptor, but the evidence is tangled. Restoration photos reveal mismatched welds and panel seams that differ from those visible in National Film and Sound Archive stills from the original production. Ownership records from the 1980s onward are incomplete, and the crucial Australian registration files remain sealed or missing. No conclusive vehicle identification number or continuous chain of custody survives to bridge the gap between the first build and the car now behind glass. Sequels and repeated restorations have blurred the Interceptor's identity, leaving fans and historians to debate whether the museum piece is the hero car, a heavily rebuilt survivor, or something in between. The legend of the Mad Max Interceptor now rests on contested memories, partial documentation, and the enduring power of myth. Its true origin story is as elusive as the wasteland it once roared through. James Dean's Mercury Coupe, a customized lead sled from 1949, carried more than just a movie character through the infamous cliffside chicken run in Rebel Without a Cause. It became a touchstone for post-war rebellion, immortalized in black and white stills and the memory of a generation. Yet the car's journey after 1955 turned into a maze of repainting, retitling, and bureaucratic neglect. Warner Brothers, like most studios of the era, treated cars as disposable tools, leased from prop houses, cycled from one production to the next, and rarely tracked with any care for future significance. No master inventory survives that ties a specific Mercury to Dean's hands on the wheel. The cars were stripped of their movie identity, repainted for westerns or police dramas, and eventually sold off or scrapped with no ceremony. Collectors and fans have spent decades chasing rumors and half-remembered serial numbers, but none have produced a continuous title or studio record that can stand up to scrutiny. The Mercury's fate is now a void in the archives, a cultural loss that echoes the car's own role as an emblem of fleeting youth. Its disappearance into the machinery of Hollywood's prop system leaves only photographs and legend, a quiet reminder of how easily icons can be erased by routine and indifference. 5. Alpine White 1970 Dodge Challenger RT models, each a muscle car icon, were delivered to the set of Vanishing Point in 1970. 4 came equipped with 440 Magnum V8 engines and 4-speed manual transmissions, built for speed, violence, and the relentless demands of filming. The 5th had a 383 V8 engine with an automatic transmission, and it handled the toughest stunts where precise throttle control mattered more than raw horsepower. Over weeks of punishing desert shoots, the cars endured jumps, high-speed chases, and sand-blasted runs that left them battered and barely drivable. Mechanics like Max Balkowski swapped parts between the fleet, keeping at least one car rolling as the rest fell victim to the relentless pace. When production wrapped, the fate of these Challengers was sealed not by accident or neglect, but by corporate decree. Studio records and Chrysler's own fleet policies called for all cars to be returned after filming. Director Richard Sarafian later confirmed in interviews that Chrysler, angered by the film's portrayal of lawlessness and destruction, ordered every last Challenger crushed. No invoices, no vehicle identification number lists, and no crusher receipts have surfaced. Only the consistent testimony of those who were there. For more than 50 years, collectors and Mopar historians have hunted for a survivor. None has ever emerged. Every claim of a screen-used Vanishing Point Challenger collapses under scrutiny, with no authenticated paperwork, no matching vehicle identification number, and no chain of custody. The destruction of all 5 cars left a void that replicas and tribute builds have tried to fill, but none can claim the aura of the originals. The deliberate erasure by the very company that built them turned the Vanishing Point Challenger into a symbol of loss, an object lesson in how cultural artifacts can be obliterated by routine procedure. Its absence is felt not just by car enthusiasts, but by anyone who has watched Kowalski's doomed flight across the desert and wondered what became of the machine that carried him there. In the end, the Vanishing Point Challenger did not just vanish. It was erased on purpose, leaving behind a legend that grows larger with every year the truth remains buried. Across all 10 cases, one pattern emerges. Even icons can slip through the cracks of history. These vanished cars are not just missing artifacts. They are reminders of how easily cultural legends can be lost to time, chance, or neglect. In an era obsessed with preservation, their absence proves that some legacies are more fragile and more mysterious than we ever expect. Which disappearance surprised you most? Let us know below.